Welcome to the Steve Show. Today I have Joseph Quinn here, and we're going to talk about how he went from having his own business, a Pilates studio, and then he decided to start a tech company. And while he was building his family, he went from having one child to 3 children, and how he's integrated all that, and he's been able to maintain his family life while having the high impact of a startup. Well, Joseph, thanks for being on the show.
It is my pleasure.
Awesome. It's so amazing, like, your story, because you basically built a business that was giving you the cush life. You're in San Francisco Bay Area, you have your Pilates studio, and maybe just share like what you had going on, and then we'll get to what you're doing now.
Right. Yeah. So I was a small business owner, and I owned a Pilates studio in Berkeley. I had built it up. It was one little room, and then we had 5. We had a second studio for a while. I was working with my alma mater, Cal Berkeley, so I was getting to work with athletes. I had met my wife through Pilates, so we were working together, and I was playing in a jazz band. It was just it was chill. It was chill. Everything was just fine. And I was happy. I felt fulfilled because I was working with these clients, and I knew that I was having an impact on their life. And I loved them. They were like family to me. So it was things were good. But I knew that Pilates had the ability to help a lot more people than just the immediate people I was seeing in my studio. And I was seeing where healthcare was going towards, preventative care, right? Predictive analytics and preventative care, making sure that people are staying out of the hospitals.
Right.
And I was like, I know Pilates keeps you out of the hospitals. And so I knew that there was an opportunity for us as an industry to have a larger impact on the world. And meanwhile, I was trying to convey progress to my clients and convey progress to the football players and to the coaches that are working with them and the medical staff and the strength and conditioning coaches. And Pilates doesn't operate in those same kind of basic increments of, if you're benching 250 and then you're benching 275, you're clearly stronger, right?
Right.
Or if you're running a 4.5 40 and then you can run it at 4.4, you're clearly faster.
Right.
And Pilates doesn't work that way, right? Because you're getting better at movements and understanding your body and moving from your center and having precise movements, and it's a more difficult thing to quantify. And so I was kind of going through both various things were happening around me, both the, watching us get more referrals from doctors, from OBGYNs, osteopaths, orthopedic surgeons, because Pilates was working. And then I'm working with my athletes, but having this problem like reporting their progress. And then simultaneously, Apple comes out with the iPhone, apps start coming out, and I realize there's an opportunity for our industry to have our own technology. And in exploring that, I realized that I had kind of a eureka moment while thinking about this potential app. I opened up my fantasy baseball scores, of all things, and but I looked at the arrangement of numbers and how baseball has this just beautiful but elaborate system of keeping track of what's going on with their players and being able to compare players. And I thought, wow, if we used that as a starting point, but instead of applying it to hits, home runs, and stolen bases, we applied it to the human body, to the biomechanics and anatomy of movement. I saw a way that we could start to write about Pilates and movement in general in a binary code. And that was like, okay, wait a minute. I saw how the math would work,
Right?
And I knew it would. It was irrefutable. I'd bet my life on it. I was like, it wasn't something like, I wonder if the numbers will add up. I was like, no, absolutely. Like if I'm standing here, I'm stable, right?
Right.
If I'm like this, I'm in flexion.
Right.
If I come back like this, I'm in extension, right? Those are, that's what's happening. It's a fact.
Wow.
So if something is either happening or not happening, therefore it's binary, right? So I all of a sudden I figured out how the math would work, and I started to imagine like how a user interface would work, how this app would look, so a professional could see how you were moving and tap what exercises you were doing. But then the app, using this mathematic formula, would be able to generate anatomical, biomechanical stats, graphs, and charts, and that you could then and you could aggregate these stats over time. And that's when I realized, like, oh wow, we're really on to something. And so I was working on it just thinking out how it would work one-to-one.
Right.
And I conveniently, I'm in the Bay Area, so there's plenty of tech people around.
Right.
And I go start meeting with different people and getting feedback on it. And one of my friends, a dear friend of mine, Brian Crapo, he sat me down and he's like, I don't know a lot about Pilates, but I do know a lot about technology. And he's a hedge fund manager, and he in biotechnology, and so he understands things things that are coming
really well.
And he's just like, the insights that we're going to get. He's like, I don't know Pilates, but you put this in the cloud, you make this a cloud-based technology, and you could really start to network and create something very special. And that's when I started, researching what is cloud-based technology and what are predictive analytics, and trying to understand like where things are going with healthcare. Again, that idea that you can predict patient outcomes years in advance, which is fascinating.
Right.
Fascinating.
Right.
And the impact that it's going to have on people's lives. It's just, we're extending the goalposts of life, which is just mind-blowing. And I know that, and one of the key components of that is maintaining mobility. And so I was just like, that's it. Like, we could actually start to prove that, Pilates and other beautiful modalities such, yoga and bar, they're just ways of moving your body that are going to allow you to enjoy life more. And I knew that this technology would be a way for us to network these people who are living a healthy, positive life, to help them with their own business, right? That like, you're a Pilates teacher and you want clients.
Right.
And so this would help you bring clients in and keep them.
Right.
Because you can demonstrate the sophistication of the work.
The retention will be so much higher when you can track what's going on.
Yeah.
And then the patient or the client is saying, oh my gosh.
I mean, it can engage it. Yeah.
I can see my result. I'm more motivated to go.
Exactly. I mean, it's one of the oldest business adages around is, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Right.
Right. So I started to realize that this could be huge. Right. And but cloud-based technology is not cheap. Right. So all of a sudden it was just like, okay, how are we going to do this? Like, are we really going to launch a tech startup? And my wife and I, we had at this point a dog, Chewbacca, and our daughter Bernadette. She was 1 year old at this point. And, we still are running our small business. I'm still working with the university. I'm still going to jazz band practice. I'm going, hanging out with my friends on the weekend. It's like we're still living our life, but trying to work on this project. And I came to the realization, like, there's no way that this project is going to actually happen unless we go all in, like all in.
Right.
So it was my suggestion. I was like, how about we just close up everything, sell a bunch of stuff, just shrink the studio down so it'll be one tiny room left. And my wife's family lives out on a dairy farm in the Central Valley. And this is in Oakdale, California. So this is a couple of hours outside of the San Francisco Bay Area. And they had, her grandparents had passed away, so that house was there on the dairy. Her sister and her brother-in-law, my family, they were living in the side house. And it was a big house, and they were saving up to buy their own house. And they were living out there with the cows and and grandma and grandpa, Paca and Beffa, as we call them. And I was like, what if we just go move in with Natasha and Dan? And we'll just it'll be super uncomfortable. All these people living on top of each other. We'll be way out in the country, just me and the cows. And but we can focus on this and start to really develop. It's one thing to come up with the formula. It's another thing to do all the computations.
Right.
And my wife was like, let's go for it. Let's do it.
So she was in with you.
Yeah, she's like,
which is key, right?
Oh,
in the
it's
relationship.
incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, there's to give you an idea of how much this is the story that demonstrates just how much she was into it. So we're saving up to just to find out how much it's really going to cost to build this thing.
Right.
Just to find out how much it's going to cost, what it's going to look like, how long it's going to take, just to get the parameters of it. It's $15,000. Which is a lot of money for 2 Pilates instructors, right? So we are we're saving up our pennies, and we're getting all excited. We're we're gonna go for this, right? We're gonna figure out how much this thing, and we're just pumping with excitement, right? And so we have a 1 year old at this time who's now 1.5, and we're out there on the dairy farm. And we're working on our computations, and we're getting ready. It's the next week we're going. It's $15,000 to spend to find this information out.
Right.
And my wife taps me on the shoulder. I'm pregnant. And I'm yay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, right?
So it's just like, oh my goodness. And then like, we don't have to do this. Like we can go back, we can open up the studio, we can expand it out.
Right.
Like we can put this on the shelf and come back to it. And my wife's like, nah, let's go for it. We got to do this. This is too big.
all in.
Yeah. And so it's like, all right. And so, yeah, so that's how we started, getting into this project. And then we went through we worked with ArcTouch, this amazing app development firm, and we, got how much it was going to cost. And then it was, okay, now we have to raise that capital. And my mentor, Eric Sipple, he's one of my clients, and his son worked with us, and his wife worked with my wife, and so they're family. And he used to be a venture capitalist, and he's retired now, but still, he's done plenty of deals and knows it from every which angle. And he started like, okay, you need to build a pitch deck, you need to form a corporation, you have to secure intellectual property, this punch list that was like, longer than Santa's list, right?
Wow.
And so just started working on it while doing the computations and raising capital and building this thing. And at this point it was just so incredibly stressful, right? Because we're apart a lot, because I would drive in, and then it was just excuse me.
It's okay.
It was incredibly stressful.
Yeah, I understand.
And
especially going from where you were to having this.
Just
You're like, what did
crap,
I do?
And then you're raising capital and you're already in, and like I can't get out.
Yeah.
So. But you just got to keep pushing, right? You got to stay focused. You can't let go.
Yeah.
Right. So, man, is this Oprah?
I appreciate you being that open to be here with us, Joseph, because so many people think about doing something like this,
right.
And for you to be open with us and share where you went. So, and you're having this cush life, and then you went all in, and now you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, and they're just incredible people along the way, right? Because you believe in it, and you have to really find that passion within yourself, and then you share it with your own family, because there's nothing more important than that. And then your family supports you, and then you kind of go like, okay, well, what about my Pilates family, the people that I work with, and then you're because in the beginning you're to get these things going, you're having to raise capital, right? And that's through family and friends,
right?
Who both. Not just support me, but see the vision of what we're trying. That there's, this isn't, smoke. It's like, oh, there's something here, and so we're working on this. And then like one of my best friends, who's his name's Duke Courtnell, and he has experience in startups, and he's a lawyer, and he was just kind of giving me advice. And finally, he's like, man, I think it's time for me to come aboard. Let's take this thing to the next level. So he took over operations, and we just started getting stronger and smarter. And then we unveiled the technology. We're like close, right? And we're like, we've got our prototype. We're like, this is it. And like we moved back to San Francisco, and we're like, yeah, like all excited.
Right.
And like my wife has our second daughter. At this point, that baby that was just announced, before this whole process is going on.
10 months has
right,
gone.
exactly. So Mabel is born. Bernadette gets her little sister. Mabel was born in San Francisco, and then we go to this big, huge conference to unveil the technology, and it's very nervous. Like, okay, how are people going to respond to this? And we present it, and we went to the Pilates Method Alliance conference. This is 2015 in Colorado. And Pilates Method Alliance conference is the Pilates Method Alliance is a professional association for Pilates teachers.
Right.
And there are different styles of Pilates, and Pilates is a global billion-dollar industry. But it's a way for everyone to kind of congregate and share ideas. Right. So everyone is there, and I present the technology, and like everyone's like, wow, and it's like, yeah, and the leaders of the industry, colleagues that I just respected for years, who I looked up to, Brent Anderson of Polestar, Curious Sabin from Fletcher Pilates, all of a sudden they're at my booth, and they're like, what is this? Like, are you, it wasn't just the instructors, but like the leaders of the industry. The Pilates Method Alliance itself, like, invited me to like come and present to their board of directors. It's like, we need to understand what exactly is going on here.
Wow. Because
you're talking about taking a pencil and paper industry. It's a huge, fast-growing industry, but it's still people track the client's progress with pencil and paper, if they're even tracking it. To all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, we're going to jump right ahead to cloud-based analytics.
Go all the way.
jump.
Yeah.
But then, it's Thursday at the conference, and we've got our little team, like Duke and our friend, one of the people who works with us, Tony Ryan. We have a little 3-man team. We're like running back to the room. We're calling back to the developers, like trying to get things, because it's a prototype, right? There's like bugs and we're trying to clean things up, and it's just total chaos. And all of a sudden we realized, and it was Duke who was just like, I don't think we can launch. I think we need to make sure that we can take care, because he started to see like there's all these different styles of Pilates and different people involved. He's like, I think we need to reframe this. And so we're having little meetings with our team, and I'm calling back to Eric Sipple, and we're all of a sudden we're like, we have to pivot the whole company. Like, we can't release a product that tries to take care of everybody at the same time. We need to become software as a service, or SaaS as they call it.
Right, yeah.
And so now all of a sudden we're so Thursday, like, here's our prototype, we're launching soon. And then by Sunday it's like, yeah, we're probably not launching for like another year and a half. It's like it's gonna be a while. So then we're like, okay, so then we come back to San Francisco, and it's like, crap, we can't afford the Bay Area, so we go back out to the dairy. So we return back out there, and then while we're trying to figure things out, and it was at this moment where, again, super high stress moment where the startup is running out of money. The schools, these big Pilates entities, they want to see more development before they start signing any contracts. And then in order to do the development that they want to see, we need more capital.
Right.
But the investors don't want to invest any more capital unless they see some contracts.
Right.
So it was a big catch-22. And it was just like one of those things where the walls were closing in, and we were just like, this is, it looked like, I thought we were going to implode, right? And then Galvanize, which is an education community in San Francisco. They have campuses in San Francisco and New York, Denver. It's extraordinary, and it's a place where startups operate, but then there's postgraduate education for full stack design, data science, lots of like hardcore stuff. And then bigger companies operate out of there too. So IBM is there, Accenture is there, and it's just this whole wild ecosystem. And I'd seen it before, but we weren't ready as a company at that point, but I'd still like them on Facebook.
Right.
And then, so also, the walls are closing in, and on my feed it pops up that Pfizer Healthcare is doing a innovations in health and wellness program, and they're selecting the 10 most innovative startups in health and wellness, and are going to give them 6 months in San Francisco at Galvanize, and all this advanced education in digital health. And so we applied to it, and I was just like, come on. And we did not get in.
Oh my gosh.
We did not get in.
I was waiting for you to say we got in. I was going to be like high-fiving you.
No. And so, I was devastated. And, my wife had just gotten a vacuum cleaner, and there's a big vacuum cleaner cardboard box. I beat the crap out of that boy. I was just like, just so frustrated. Right. And then I collected myself. And I went back to the computer, and the guy, Ryan Nadeau, he's with Galvanize, and Ryan, had said, like, I'm really sorry, you were really close. If you ever, they're going to do the program again in 6 months, you should really apply. And I'm like, dude, we're not going to be around in 6 months. We're going to be done. And he's like, but if you ever want to come by Galvanize and get a cup of coffee, come on by, and we can catch up. And so after destroying the cardboard box, I collected myself, and then was like, yes, how about Monday? And so I, immediately, just a few days later, there I am at Galvanize, walking around, seeing the whole thing, and it's so excited, right? And just like, gosh, I want to be here so bad. And then Ryan kind of, showed me where the cohort was taking place, and he's just like, wait, so how many people are on your team? And I was like, just 2. He's like, okay, we're just working out the spacing of everything, and then later that night he emailed me. He's like, you're in.
That's it.
And it was just like, yes.
So you got it.
Yes.
Now we got it.
Yes. But it's just like one of those things where you're just like,
Right.
But if you give up to despair, right, you'll never get ahead, right? You have to face that stuff, but then you also have to be like, okay, how do I there's an
like you said,
opportunity.
pivot. How
Yeah.
do you keep pivoting? You keep moving.
Right.
You know, it's something that I teach all the time. It's
Yeah.
like a rock appears. It's not necessarily breaking the rock. It's how do you get around it? How do
Right.
the water, like Bruce Lee says, be water, my friend.
Right.
Be water.
Beautiful.
So you find your way around.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's where things become a lot easier.
A lot easier. Yeah. And relying on the people that you know and the people that you just meet. Right.
Well, yeah, what I'm hearing so far so much is utilizing your network and all these
Absolutely.
people that you've had in your life and they've all, you know, played some part, you know, and even
Huge
for me,
part, yeah.
as I went, like there's people that I've known and I never knew what piece they were going to play in my life, and it's not always present when you meet them, and then
No.
all of a sudden they become this huge
Yeah,
opening,
absolutely, yeah.
like, oh, good, I can introduce you to all those people.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
and all of a sudden
That's
you're like,
amazing, yeah.
what?
It's just you're meeting all of these people along the way, a long way of life.
Right.
Right. And most people you'll never need anything from.
Right.
So-
And yeah, and it's just being there, and you never know. It's not like you expected it either.
No.
I didn't want to make it in that way. I'm just saying that it just comes forward, and I think there's
Right.
no coincidence. Like how we each meet, like sometimes there's people I've met, and I didn't think, you know, we're just like friends, and we're like, wow, this is a cool person, and then some calling comes together, and we're
Right.
like ready to, you know, do something together.
But listening to them, right? I mean, you can just meet people and say, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you. How you doing?" But if you actually like take the time to listen to who they are and talk to them, and you know, the world is filled with interesting people,
Absolutely, and who they know,
and then
right?
so that when you're all of a sudden you're faced with an obstacle. And you're like, there's no way I'm getting around this obstacle personally.
Right,
But
yeah.
but then you think back, wait, there's the one guy, you know.
He knows the map around the rock, you
Right,
know?
yeah. I mean, it was, you know, if you talk about like a circuitous route, I, you know, involved in Pilates. I knew people at Pilates Style Magazine. I told them about the idea. The editor-in-chief, who I hadn't met in person yet, Amanda Altman, she's just like, hey, you should talk to my brother-in-law. So I was introduced to Aaron and Schoenfeld, who lives in Boca Raton, you know, via New York. And so we start talking, and he's the one who connects me to Galvanize. I can't get in there yet because we weren't ready, but I still, you know, it's like this whole weird route. And then eventually, all of a sudden, the company is about to implode, and then through that whole crazy pattern, Galvanize opens this whole huge, in Pfizer Healthcare opens this whole huge door.
Yeah, and that's where you never know. I think Steve Jobs said it, you can't connect the dots till you're already past it. You know?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, you just have to live and follow your heart.
Right.
And that's what you've done this whole time. And
Yeah.
and so balance might have disappeared.
Oh, it's,
you know,
yeah, completely gone.
And
Yeah.
so how what was the turning point for you that you started to bring some, you know, bringing that, you know, with everything that you were giving in your
Right.
family and how even emotional it was for
Yeah.
you right now? What was the turning point where now you've started to got you're still building this tech,
Right.
and
Oh,
you're,
yeah.
and you're not out of the thick
Oh,
of it
no,
yet.
we're still in the woods still.
But you've something changed, and
Right.
do you know where that point was so that you can have? Because now Joseph will tell in a minute, but speaking to the audience, you're living more balance in your life now, or more integration. Like
Right.
we always play the word balance is like probably a myth. Like some moments you're gonna
Yeah.
have to work really hard,
Right.
and
It's-
then
that's
so
a
you,
good-
you know it's
that's
like,
a very-
it's
it's
more
a-
integrated
Right, that's
lifestyle.
I really, the way you said that it's, you know, that the stress never goes away. You know, that these things these obstacles are still coming up. Like we're still growing as a company, but it's that you know, the idea that you make that time, right? That you like. I mean, as a startup, there is no work week. It's just nonstop all the time, right? And you know, week in, week out. When I wake up in the morning, when I can't sleep at night, I'm thinking about how
Yeah.
these things are going to work.
Right.
And you know, my wife is really good at, you know, we'll just be like, hey, no talk about, you know, we're on a walk, let's not talk about business, right? Or like, you know, hey, let's put the phones down and let's, you know, no screen time, you
Right.
know? And just making sure you get that time, you know, because I still love playing my instrument. And like that was like one of the things that I wasn't doing when my life was way out of balance, right? None of this would have happened without my family, you know, and that includes my immediate family, my wife and my children. It also includes, you know, my own mom and my brothers and sisters. You know, I wouldn't have started on Pilates without help from my mom, right? You know, to get going with my teacher training program, you know, just to enroll in the program, my mom helped me out, you know, and she supported it wasn't just the financial aspect, but like my whole family supported me going on this venture, right? And opening my own small studio. And then, when you get into the idea of Pilates metrics, like it never would have happened if we didn't have Corinne's parents, Beppa and Paka, out on the Donegal Dairy. Yeah, and so, and then it wouldn't have happened the next step if, her sister, Natasha, and my brother-in-law, Dan, weren't like, yeah, come live with us. It's going to be total insanity.
Right.
Because, we had
which is something your kids are never going to forget. Like, I mean, this moment to be with their cousins.
Oh, yeah.
And have bonds, that intimacy. It's going to be forever.
Right. Yeah. And it's just the idea that, that everyone's supporting each other along the way. Right. And that, and again, that like my Pilates studio family, Eric Sipple, like I would not have even known where to begin without him and the love and support of his family. And again, how would I have taken the next step if my brother Duke Courtnell, my co-founder, didn't like look and say like, all right, I can help you, and you need it. And I'm like, yes, I do.
And I'm in.
And I'm in, right. And so, and each of these steps you take, like we were saying, that there's your immediate core family, but then there are all the relationships you're building along the way, and that you're listening to the people that you meet, because most people don't listen very good.
Right.
They're too in their own heads, and no one can do anything truly important just by themselves.
Right. Well, I mean, I say this adage all the time, but that African proverb that says, if you want to go somewhere fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others.
Right.
And it's so true, because you can only do so much yourself, but then when you have that, it's brilliant. And when I look at this, so I teach a program, more business, more life, and that's really what you've done. You've been growing the startup, and literally you have more business going on, and you have more life, more family. Even your family is growing.
Yeah, more business, more life.
One baby, and you have 3 now. I mean, so you've really done this. You've been, and there's times where you went from having that cush life that you had set up, and you had that squeeze, but then you kind of found your way out, and you've gotten balance in your life now, and living in Southern California. So you're having watching the sunset with your family, and you're doing all these things that you've shared with me. And you're still building the startup. So I guess I'm curious, for my audience, like, if there's one thing you could give, like, that's most important to create both of those without sacrificing, to keep your family and have your business, what would be the one piece of advice you would share?
I would tell people it's okay to be uncomfortable. Right? It's a good thing. Most people, whether it's, just in their relationships or their work or their politics or whatever it is, it's just like, this is the way it is, and this is the way it's always going to be, and I'm not going to change this, right? And if that's the life you want to lead, that's fine, right? But if you put yourself in situations that aren't exactly comfort, that they're not safe, and that you have to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to move forward with this? I have to, face these problems head on. I have to face these challenges head on, and be open with my both my introspection, but also leaning on those around me. But it's, to move forward, you're going to have to fall down a couple of times when you learn how to walk. Right. So it's that idea that it's okay. And we've made plenty of wrong moves with this business, right? But it's, you take the step and you take inventory of what's going on, and you're like, well, that's not going to work, so let's pull this back and go this way.
Right.
Or it's, my wife and I are like, we're not going to put our family on hold while we're working on this, right? There's nothing more important than that family. And no matter what happens with the business or with any business venture, it always comes back to your relationship with your loved ones, and celebrating that, and making sure you carve out that time.
Right.
I just came up from Southern California to, there's a conference tomorrow, and we're all kinds of meetings and all of this stuff going on. But I still went to made time to go to a concert last night and dance with my friends and just live, like, give yourself that outlet.
Right.
And it's it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you need to do that to grow.
That's it. Yeah, because otherwise, if you do the same, you're in the same.
Yeah, life's gonna get pretty boring.
Right, and I always say this because this one line that I always say: success doesn't feel normal. Because when you're going towards your success, and then it doesn't feel right, people go that it's wrong and they pull back. But really, it's just different. It's just a new experience, and when we can actually see that success is not going to feel how we thought it was. Like how many times, and we don't have enough time to even go over them today, but how many times did it not turn out the way you thought it was going to? And you're like, what the heck? But then it was actually the way that it needed to happen, and now here we are, 3-4 years later, the company's stronger, more opportunity than ever before by morphing, by pivoting, by allowing it to move.
Exactly, and putting ourselves in a situation where we're okay to adjust too, right?
Yeah.
You're putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, but you need to learn from it and then respond accordingly.
Absolutely.
You can't just hold on to idea like this is the way it's got to be done.
Right.
This is my little bubble.
Right.
It's just like you got to throw that bubble out.
Right.
And you got to interact with other people. And if you have a vision of what you want to accomplish, like I'm trying to, me personally, I'm trying to digitally integrate the global Pilates community and connect it to healthcare. It's a bit of a project,
right?
but it's but whatever your project is, whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether it's just a little project at work, or you're going to start your own business, or you're going to, whatever it is you're trying to do, you've got to try it first, right? To know that if it's going to work or it's not going to work, right? And you're like, okay, and then you just take each step as it goes,
right?
And the joke that my business partner and I like to say, like, it's a football term, right? In football, you're trying to score a touchdown, but but when a team is driving, they're moving the chains, right? Just get the first down, just move the chains, right? You're just trying to move incrementally along, right? And if all you're doing is like, well, we're just going to throw a Hail Mary every single time, it's like that's not going to work. You're not going to win
high risk too.
High risk,
and you'll probably
So you just incrementally taking these little steps, and moving the chains until you get to pay dirt, till you get to where you want to go.
That's it.
And that it can't just be about if it's just about financial success, it's not. You're not going to get there, right? Because there has to be some. That whole idea of why, right? Like, why am I doing this? And I knew that Pilates was impactful to those that I shared it with in my little community, and I knew that if we leveraged technology, we could, that Pilates itself and other modalities could expand and be more integrated into people's life.
Right.
And but again, it's embracing embracing those around you and learning from the discomfort and the wrong steps, but taking them and going for it.
Yeah, and I think your flexibility, and I'm just thinking in my head how this is like Pilates, right? Like you just say, I have back problems, and you just own that for the rest of your life. Instead, we know change is possible inside the body.
That's beautiful.
Change is possible in business,
right?
And you've just allowed for that to happen, and that's what's allowed you to get to where you are. I think your willingness to be flexible, and move and morph has allowed you what you have,
right? And it's to listen to those around you and listen to those experts and listen to those loved ones and grow all the way around and outward.
Right. Yeah. And really, you can't take anything away from this. No matter what happens with your endeavors, you're gonna grow.
Right.
Right. If you put your attention on that, like with what you've done, you're a whole different person.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And
it's 4 or 5 years ago.
And I was happy with myself 4 or 5 years ago. Right. I wasn't. But it's just embracing the challenge and just going for it.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I'm so happy that you.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, it's. I hope people enjoy it, and we'll check back in again someday.
Absolutely. Well, I know I'm pretty active with social media, and if you are too, then we'll connect.
Absolutely.
So everyone can see and ask questions, what's going on, and if there's something from this that you want to know more, then please do ask questions and share with us what you thought and what did you take away. I also ask that all the time.
Right.
What was taken away from this, so that we can have more episodes like this and share more stories. But I think it is beautiful just hearing your story. Other people are thinking about it, and to hear your story just empowers others to make these decisions and have it. So I'm
happy to help. Happy hope to inspire, but I'm just telling my story.
That's it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And as everyone remembers, always, I would say choose gratitude and create freedom. So until next time, really look at where you are in your life. What things have you been wanting to do, but you haven't done it, and you didn't have the courage? Well, just step forward and, like Joseph did, take that first step and see where it takes you. Thank you so much.